My next guest penned a colourful piece about the Greens and their destructive force in Australian politics. Former Resources Minister Keith Pitt wrote in the Courier Mail that the Labor-held inner city seats are currently under attack by the Greens. There already exists a coalition of sorts between the parties of the socialist left. But will that association be formalised further, as has been suggested by some senior Greens MPs? National MP for Hinkler, Keith Pitt, joins me now. Keith, welcome to the program. Will we see a formal coalition between Labor and the Greens?
Rita, it already exists, right? It's already there. So
it's not formal. It's there. Labor could not be in government without preferences from the Greens. That's for sure. But will we see something like the Liberal Nationals have? That sort of a coalition where you might see a Greens MP sitting in cabinet.
Oh, you're suggesting Glaber or Labourine?
Labourine, I like that.
Well, this is the point I was making in the op-ed. So you've got effectively, the mild, meek, Dr. Banner types, but in reality, they're the improbable Hulk, right? They want to close everything. You imagine Adam Bandt as the Resources Minister.
Oh, that would be scary.
Sarah Hanson-Young looking after water and agriculture.
Well, she sometimes confuses TV shows with real life, so that's not ideal.
Not a good start.
For that role. And we are seeing the Greens make decisions that seem very much hypocritical. You pointed out that they back clearing of thousands of hectares of koala habitat to put these solar farms and wind projects. I mean, how do they sell that to their voters? And let's not beat around the bush. They've got a lot of supporters, and the younger Australians are increasingly voting Greens. How do they convince them that it's a good idea to be clearing koala habitat? How is that a green project?
Well, they just don't tell them. They lie. They told them at the last election they would get rid of their HEX debt. Well, that hasn't happened. It's not happening. And now we see these types of projects, and press today, we see proposals where they're going to change potentially the EPBC Act to give these types of projects effectively the green light. Now, everything else, coal, oil, gas, cattle, anything in agriculture, clearing for building houses, can't do that. But if it's wind and solar, big thumbs up, knock it all down. It is such a mess.
It is an absolute mess, and we know where that infrastructure largely comes from. It's from China, so we're enriching China. We're becoming dependent on that supply chain that China controls, and they're a blight on the landscape. When you fly over the country and you see these solar farms, hideous. And then in beautiful, otherwise country, it scars the country. Yeah, it's certainly something that I think Australians are increasingly becoming aware of. Now, yesterday we saw Treasurer Jim Chalmers warn Australia that we will not be able to meet our net zero emission targets by 2050 without greater, robust government intervention, and we all know what that's code for, more taxpayer dollars. But he claims spending this money will actually bring down inflation because it will ultimately lead to cheaper energy costs. What do you think about that?
So you're going to spend potentially more than $1 trillion of the taxpayers' money, and that will bring inflation down. That's Jimonomics at its best. I don't think I've seen it any better than that. But I mean, every single one of your viewers, Rita, how many of them had their power prices go down, their gas prices go down? This will turbocharge those challenges. It will make it worse. They will pay more. Cost of living is out of control now, and I think the Australian people need to tell federal Labor, no more. Stop trying to bring this stuff forward even faster. They just can't pay for it.
I love Jimonomics. I mean, it sounds even better than Bidenomics. I think that could catch on, like Airbus Albo, which our good friend Paul Murray coined. What about coal prices? I mean, if we're not closing down all our coal plants, energy costs will probably right now be rock bottom because coal prices have dived.
Well, thermal coal prices certainly come off. But under an Adam Bandt Cabinet Ministry for Resources, There'll be no new projects and they'll close all the ones that exist. I mean, as the former resources
But will
minister...
we still export our coal so other countries can have the benefit of cheap, reliable energy?
Well, that's the exact question. And as the former resources minister, my rules are easy. If they're buying, we're selling. Because it's good for the country, it's good for the economy, it's good for jobs. And why wouldn't we utilise our own resources? And how is it that under Labor's proposal, the safeguard mechanism, you can have offsets if you're an aluminium smelter, you deliver cement, concrete, whether you do steel, iron ore or anything else, but you can't offset a coal-fired power station which is reliable, that can deliver really cheap electricity. They all have to close.
It's beyond me. And how many are China opening every week? I mean, that is the contrast. It's not like we're in line with the rest of the world. We saw the federal court rule recently that energy giant Santos cannot install undersea pipelines for its $5.3 billion Barossa project as planned because lawyers for a Tiwi Islander elder argued it would cause irreparable harm to traditional owners' connection to sea and country. A full hearing will be heard on November 13 to determine whether drilling can ever begin on the 262-kilometre long pipeline. Just another project that seems to be the target of lawfare. This, again, doesn't seem to be a sustainable way of going about energy security or energy policy. Don't
forget, federal Labor fund those lawyers.
So your
taxpayer dollars
go to fund
the Environmental Defender's Office,
who then interrupt or stop these projects.
Yep, and same at Woodside for the big project of Western Australia. This one north of the Territory, out in the ocean, a couple hundred K. Not only will you potentially lose that project, but you potentially lose the Darwin LNG upgrade, 20-year life extension, 600 jobs, same in Western Australia. These projects take years to develop, to deliver, to get a financial decision for the engineering, the material. I mean, Santos, if I remember correctly, they've spent $2 or $3 billion of their $5 already, and they're parked up because of an activist lawyer group funded by the taxpayer under decisions from the Labor Treasurer.
And normally, when there's legal action, the litigants have something to lose. But in this case, the taxpayer is picking up the bill. So if they take this action and they're ultimately unsuccessful, if they have costs awarded against them, the actual activists aren't out of pocket, are they? We are out of pocket.
No. So the federal Labor budget gave them almost $10 million, which has been allocated, and then more than $2 million every year ongoing.
Wow.
So on one side, they're saying, yes, we love resources and we think they're great. But on the other side, they're funding the people who are closing the projects that are delivering jobs and driving our economy. So this is the hypocrisy of the federal Labor government. It is mad. It's just not that hard. How about we do the things that work, we utilise our own resources, we get power prices down and let every Australian have an opportunity that they deserve.
Well, I spoke about this issue yesterday on this station, and I advocated very strongly for the Coalition to abandon its net zero position, give the electorate a clear choice at the ballot box at the next federal election. Keith Pitt, I trust you will advocate for that position, and thank you for joining me tonight.
Well, certainly the one I advocated last time, and I think that discussion is coming and coming fast.
Good to hear. Good to hear.